Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The European Union has decided to do whatever it takes in order to tackle climate change. Within this framework, it has decided to do something about the situation provoked by methane and the greenhouse effect. And it has elaborated a strategy. The European Parliament is working on it, and I'm responsible for the solution provided. And right now we are waiting to have a vast majority in the plenary next week in Strasbourg. Having said that, what is methane? Methane is the most important emission, second most important. It is very strong within a short period of time, and it is created by many human activities, but it is mostly due to the transfer of energy of petrol, natural gas, petrochemicals when treated. Also, the waste management is another factor. Landfills, for instance, this is especially a problem in Greece, but also from agriculture. Agriculture is the second sector with the highest potential in overall benefits for reducing methane emissions. That's why we're here today, and we will be listening to the Greek minister, Mr. Spilios Livanos, who has already sent us his video. So we're here today with two very important colleagues, very capable colleagues, Mr. Ross Semper and Mrs. Jutta Paulus from the Greens. But also there are among us several scientists in order to propose our farmers and our people in general some good practices in order to reduce methane, to protect the environment, but also in order to try and develop these best practices so that we will achieve business cases. So the methane emissions come especially from rice culture, from manure, and it is a big source of methane. That's why the greenhouse emissions, including animals, were reduced in recent years by 22% since the 90s and up to 2018, thanks to the reduction of methane emissions. We have actually reduced nutrient losses in animal feed by enteric fermentation and by producing biogas. However, there is a slight increase of methane emissions, and according to specialists and to Commission's reports, the agriculture represents the largest share of anthropogenic methane emission sources in the EU. Of course, there is a problem. It's not easy to monitor and to find out about all the emissions because the methodology so far is not very advanced. There are also differences among member states, but we will try and do our best in order to find a way also in agriculture. There are some good practices and we have to develop them and we have to facilitate them. There are also some synergies that could reduce the cost of emissions through the enteric fermentation and the production of biogas. So our objective today is to present some opportunities and best practices that are available in agriculture. Technologies and practices to limit methane emissions from agriculture, including sustainable management practices of livestock, are developing at a fast pace and should be furthered and implemented as soon as possible. This is why we should ensure that proven effective and cost-efficient innovations that mitigate methane measures in agricultural production are quickly implemented in the EU, and that the ones already available are integrated by EU producers. So we will have national funds and also European funds and also synergies with private sector. So we need to know that we use waste, some sub-products by agricultural activity that can be efficient. So energy for agriculturers and farmers themselves, so that farmers could also develop another income. That's why we need the help of CAP. In the report I signed, and I've collaborated closely with my colleagues participating in these discussions. We should remind that it is the first time that the European Union has a strategy about methane. It's the first time it is trying to do something important in Glasgow. The reduction of methane emissions will be a part of the agenda. That's why we need to include Greek farmers in this strategy in order for them to learn about best practices that could increase their income, their revenue, and at the same time, they can better protect our planet. Thank you very much for your presence here today. And I'd like to watch the video of our Greek minister, Mr. Spilios Livanos, Minister of Agriculture. He is right now on the plane and he's heading to Brussels. So we've given him some minutes in order to learn about his thoughts about the new methane strategy. So, Mr.
Επιπλέον, το χωνευμένο προϊόν που προκύπτει από την αναερόβια πέψη είναι ένα πολύτιμο βελτιωτικό του εδάφους και μια βιώσιμη εναλλακτική λύση έναντι των συνθετικών λιπασμάτων. Η κτηνοτροφία, πέρα από τον πρωταρχικό της ρόλο, δηλαδή την παραγωγή τροφίμων, έχει παράλληλα σημαντικό ρόλο στο μετριασμό του φαινομένου της κλιματικής αλλαγής. Δεν είναι απλώς μια πηγή εκπομπών, αλλά και μέρος της λύσης. Οι χορτολιβαδικές εκτάσεις μπορούν να απορροφήσουν ως και 2 τόνους CO2 ανά τόνο βιομάζας, ενώ παράλληλα παράγουν 1,5 τόνο οξυγόνου. Επιπλέον, δεν πρέπει να ξεχνάμε ότι το 35% της γεωργικής έκτασης εντός της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης μπορεί να αξιοποιηθεί μόνο από τα μυρικαστικά. Η βελτιωμένη διαχείριση των κοπαδιών, η υγεία και η καλή διαβίωση των ζώων, αλλά και οι τεχνολογίες σύντησης αποδίδουν ήδη υγιή αποτελέσματα στη μείωση του μεθανίου, όπως επισημαίνεται ακριβώς η στρατηγική. Όσον αφορά τις εκπομπές αερίων του θερμοκηπίου από το πεπτικό σύστημα των μυρικαστικών, υπάρχουν προτάσεις όπως παραδείγματος χάρη η αλλαγή στο σιτηρέσιο των ζώων και αναβάθμιση των σταυλικών εγκαταστάσεων, ώστε να γίνεται συλλογή του μεθανίου. Ωστόσο, γεννώνται ερωτήματα όπως τι θα γίνει ακριβώς με την εκτατική κτηνοτροφία, ποιο θα είναι το κόστος για τον εξυγχρονισμό των σταυλικών εγκαταστάσεων, ποιο θα είναι το κόστος των απαιτούμενων ζωοτροφών νέου τύπου, εάν και κατά πόσο θα επηρεαστεί εν τέλει η ευζοία των ζώων. Για όλα τα παραπάνω, η Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή έχει συγκροτήσει ομάδα εμπειρογνωμόνων που θα εισηγηθεί μέτρα για τη μείωση των εκπομπών μεθανίου από τη γεωργία από όλα τα κράτη-μέλη. Στην Επιτροπή αυτή συμμετέχει και εμπειρογνώμονας υπάλληλος από το δικό μας Υπουργείο, από το Υπουργείο Αγροτικής Ανάπτυξης και Τροφίμων. Επιπλέον, σημαντική είναι και η διεθνή συνεργασία, καθώς δεν έχει νόημα η Ευρωπαϊκή Γεωργία να μειώνει τις εκπομπές μεθανίου, χωρίς να αναλαμβάνεται η ανάλογη μέριμνα και από τις τρίτες χώρες. Θα πρέπει να αντιμετωπίσουμε το φαινόμενο που βλέπουμε στην παγκόσμια σκηνή, μερικές από τις μεγάλες αναδυόμενες οικονομίες να αυξάνουν τις εκπομπές γεωργικού μεθανίου τους. Γι' αυτό και αναμένουμε με ιδιαίτερο ενδιαφέρον την 26η διάσκεψη των Ηνωμένων Εθνών, την COP26, για την κλιματική αλλαγή στο τέλος αυτού του μήνα. Οφείλουμε όλοι μαζί, πολιτεία, επιστημονική κοινότητα και ενδιαφερόμενη παραγωγή, να βρούμε τις βέλτιστες λύσεις. Σε αυτή την κατεύθυνση είμαι βέβαιος ότι η σημερινή συζήτηση θα συνεισφέρει επικοδομητικά. Περιμένω όλες τις εισηγήσεις με ιδιαίτερο ενδιαφέρον και ευχαριστώ πολύ για την προσοχή σας και για την πρόσκληση.
Your invitation.
Ωραία. Τώρα που έχουμε επιστρέψει στις Βρυξέλλες, είναι μεγάλη τιμή που έχουμε δύο πολύ σπουδαίους συναδέλφους, τον κύριο Μάρκος Σέμπερς, που εκπροσωπεί τους σοσιαλιστές, και την συνάδελφο Βίτα Παύλους, που εκπροσωπεί τους πράσινους. Ο Μάρκος Σέμπερς, ο οποίος ήταν σκιώδης εισηγητής για τη μείωση των εκπομπών μεθανίου. Μάρκο, έχεις το λόγο. Δεν ξέρω αν μας ακούει ο Μάρκος.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Γεια σας και από τη δική μου πλευρά.
Thank you.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, κύριε Σπυράκη. Θα ήθελα να σας ευχαριστήσω για αυτή την πολύ σπουδαία πρωτοβουλία και την ευκαιρία που μου δίνετε για να συμμετάσχω σε αυτή την κουβέντα, γιατί μιλάμε για τη μείωση των εκπομπών μεθανίου και κυρίως εκπομπές που έχουν να κάνουν με τη γεωργία, επειδή που επηρεάζουν τη γεωργία και την κτηνοτροφία. Όλα αυτά είναι σημαντικά για να πετύχουμε τον στόχο μείωσης κατά 55% των εκπομπών. Λοιπόν, εφόσον είχαμε την έκθεση τον Αύγουστο με αυτές τις πρωτοβουλίες απαραίτητες για να μειώσουμε τις εκπομπές στην ατμόσφαιρα, γνωρίζουμε πολύ καλά ότι θα πρέπει να αναλυθούν πρωτοβουλίες για την μείωση της υπερθέρμανσης του πλανήτη. Όλα αυτά είναι σημαντικά
analyze the latest scientific data corroborating the urgency for mitigation actions. In view of this urgency, the Committee of EMI in the Parliament has been explained by Mrs. Spirakis this morning, has adopted an INI report showing the objectives and actions that we must carry out at the legislative level in the European Union to localize, control, reduce, and eliminate methane leakage. In particular, the main objectives that we would like to achieve for the agricultural sector are, for example, incorporate measures for reduce methane emissions into the national common agricultural policy strategic plan. With this measure, we could incorporate new methane emission reduction measures into the common agricultural policies, which already has any reflected and so promote new practices in line with measures that all methane emitters are currently applying. Another crucial point has been discussed was the dietary shift. To this point, it would be recommended to align the measures and objectives with what was adopted on the farm report strategy, as you have mentioned before, which arise a well-balanced actions in order to accomplish the objective of reduction of methane and greenhouse gas emission gases and human health. In this line, I think that it is crucial the revision of the additive regulation to fight with the reduction of methane emissions and improve the techniques and researches which allow a wealth and deep knowledge of feed additives and their impact in animal welfare by using some microorganisms to feed reduce methane emissions from livestock or even make them healthier and therefore produce more meat or have more meat in their body. This is a complicated issue that we need to collect as much data and researches as we can in order to well apply the appropriate measures and objectives. I think we have to be very careful with this measure, but we are, I think it is crucial to incorporate the revision of the regulation. Other important measure is to take in account the importance of the International Observatory to collect true and good data on methane emissions worldwide than the actual amount of methane emitted by agriculture, energy and waste sectors in order to better determine and implement the specific measures to be taken. Important also, talking about biogas, to take measures to use and reuse agricultural and livestock waste to produce biogas without creating a secondary market that encourages intensification of the sector. All these measures that I have mentioned aim to push for new legislation covering the whole supply chain up to the point of production in all sectors, namely in the energy, agriculture and waste sector, following the sectors mentioned in the European Commission proposal, but also in other downstream sectors such as petrochemicals, which also contribute to methane emissions. In addition, given that the European Union is the world's largest importer of fossil fuels, there is an urgent need for import-related measures to drastically reduce the impact of methane emissions worldwide in line with the 2050 target. I am pleased to be able to participate in this panel today and to be able to learn firsthand and thanks to all panelists the results of the latest
να δούμε πώς διαμορφώνται οι πιο πρόσφατες επιστημονικές μελέτες που θα μας βοηθήσουν να μειώσουμε τις εκπομπές για να καταφέρουμε να πετύχουμε τους στόχους όσον αφορά την αναδέρμανση του πλανήτη. Εμείς στο Ευρωπαϊκό Κοινοβούλιο δουλεύουμε σκληρά για να ληφθούν πρωτοβουλίες, ειδικά και να έχουμε την κοινή συνεισφορά στην COP στην Γλασκόβη. Θα λάβει χώρα προσεχώς και θα ήθελα πάλι να ευχαριστήσω την κυρία Σπυράκη για την συνεργασία της και όλους τους συμμετέχοντες για την αφοσίωση τους για να ανακαλύψουμε και να καταλήξουμε μάλλον σε αποτελεσματικά μέτρα για την μείωση των εκπομπών μεθανίου. Ευχαριστώ πάντως για την πρόσκληση και ελπίζω να είχα και εγώ τη δική μου συνεισφορά σε αυτή την κουβέντα. Ευχαριστούμε, Μάρκος. Και θα ήθελα να δώσω το λόγο στην Γιούτα. Νομίζω ότι όπως το είπαμε, όλοι συμμεριζόμαστε αυτό το στόχο της μείωσης εκπομπών μεθανίου και θα πρέπει να δούμε πώς μπορούμε να διαμορφώσουμε μια δευτερογενή αγορά για τη βιοαέρια και ευχαριστούμε, Τζούλια, που είσαι μαζί μας. Ευχαριστούμε που με καλέσατε. Χαίρομαι πάρα πολύ που είμαι μαζί σας και είναι τιμή που συμμετέχω σε αυτό το έγκυρο πάνελ. Εγώ ανήκω στην ομάδα των Πρασίνων εδώ και 2 χρόνια. Είμαι και επίσης αναπληρωτικό μέλος στο ΙΤΡΑ και επίσης στην Επιτροπή Μεταφορών και Τουρισμού. Αφότου ανέλαβα τα καθήκοντα του Ευρωβουλευτή, πραγματικά έχουμε μια εξαιρετική συνεργασία και με την Μαρία. Εντάξει, δεν λέω ότι πάντοτε συμφωνούμε, αλλά έχουμε έναν πραγματικά αλληλοσεβασμό και μια αμοιβαία εμπιστοσύνη και χαίρομαι που έχω την ευκαιρία να συνεργάζομαι μαζί σου. Πράγματι, οι εκπομπές που απορρέουν από το μεθάνιο πραγματικά εντάσσονται στην ευρύτερη στρατηγική να βελτιώσουμε τη στρατηγική μας για την κλιματική αλλαγή. Σημαντικό αυτό για τις επόμενες γενιές και το μεθάνιο έχει σημαντικό αντίκτυπο όσον αφορά το κλίμα. Είναι εκπομπές βραχύβιας διάρκειας, αλλά έχει πολύ σοβαρές επιπτώσεις για το κλίμα σε μεγαλύτερη διάρκεια. Είναι κατά 82 φορές πιο πάνω σοβαρό, δηλαδή και επιβλαβές από τις εκπομπές διοξείδου του άνθρακα. Άρα, εφόσον μπορούμε να μειώσουμε τις εκπομπές, είναι πολύ σημαντικό, γιατί δημιουργεί προβλήματα στη δημόσια υγεία, για την ατμόσφαιρα και όπως καταλαβαίνετε αυτό είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό να το αντιμετωπίσουμε το θέμα και έχει συμπεριληφθεί και στην έκθεση επίσης και για την βιομηχανική πολιτική. Έχουν δει το φως της δημοσιότητας πολλές δημοσιεύσεις όσον αφορά το μεθάνιο, το πρόγραμμα σε επίπεδο των Ηνωμένων Εθνών, μια παγκόσμια αξιολόγηση για το μεθάνιο. Είχαμε επίσης και μια έκθεση από την Διεθνή Οργάνωση για την Ενέργεια και όλοι καταλήγουν στο εξής συμπέρασμα. Εφόσον καταφέρουμε κατά 45% να περιορίσουμε τις εκπομπές μεθανίου μέχρι το 2030, κάτι που μπορεί να γίνει πιο εύκολα από το τομέα της ενέργειας, αλλά επίσης και με τα αγροτικά απόβλητα, μπορούμε μέχρι το 40 να συγκρατήσουμε την αύξηση της θερμοκρασίας. Είμαστε ήδη πάνω από το 1,4 σε σχέση με τους στόχους που έχουν καθοριστεί. Άρα αυτό είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό. Και επίσης χρειαζόμαστε την παρακολούθηση και μηχανισμό επαλήθευσης όλων των τομέων και όχι μόνο το τομέα της ενέργειας και να είμαστε σε θέση να εντοπίζουμε και γι' αυτό το λόγο εδώ οι παραγωγοί βιοαερίου μπορούν να παίξουν ένα σημαντικό ρόλο. Εντάξει, εγώ δεν έχω θέμα με να δημιουργηθεί μια αγορά για τα βιοαέρια γιατί θεωρώ ότι είναι ένα καύσιμο μπορεί να χρησιμοποιηθεί για τον τομέα των μεταφορών, που έχει πολύ περισσότερα προβλήματα όσον αφορά την απαθρακοποίηση, όπως είναι οι θαλάσσιες μεταφορές, οι εναέριες μεταφορές. Και εντάξει, δεν έχουμε πολύ χρόνο στην διάθεσή μας, άρα δεν θα επαναλάβω αυτά που έχει πει η Μαρία. Θα εστιάσω κυρίως στον τομέα της γεωργίας. Μπορεί να μην είναι αυτό πολύ δημοφιλές, αλλά θα πρέπει να αντιμετωπίσει το θέμα του ελέφαντα που βρίσκεται στην αίθουσα και ειδικά στο τομέα της κτηνοτροφίας, γιατί η γεωργία αντιπροσωπεύει περίπου το 53% των εκπομπών σε ευρωπαϊκό επίπεδο, άρα δεν μπορούμε να το αγνοήσουμε αυτό. Θα πρέπει να αναλυφθούν τακτικώς δράσεις και ειδικά στο τομέα της κτηνοτροφίας. Αυτό απαιτεί να δοθεί μια μεταβατική φάση όσον αφορά την εντατική κτηνοτροφία και να αλλάξει επίσης και το κατανολικό μοντέλο. Ιδάλλως, αυτό που θα καταφέρουμε είναι να εξάγουμε τις εκπομπές μεθανίου σε άλλες χώρες. Άρα θα πρέπει να δούμε και ο ρόλος της τεχνολογίας, της ζωοτροφές, στα προσθετικά που χρησιμοποιούν στις ζωοτροφές για μεγαλύτερη παραγωγικότητα και τέλος πάντων να δούμε ακριβώς πώς μπορούμε όλες αυτές τις τεχνολογίες και φυσικά να ισχύει και η αρχή της προφύλαξης. Δηλαδή δεν θέλουμε ούτε να βλάψουμε την ανθρώπινη υγεία, αλλά ούτε και την υγεία των ζώων. Δηλαδή αυτές οι τεχνολογίες δεν θα πρέπει να προκαλέσουν λάθη που πολύ πιο δύσκολα θα διορθωθούν στο μέλλον. Και επίσης έχουμε και την παραγωγή λιπασμάτων που προκαλούν πολλές εκπομπές του μεθανίου και που παράγουν κυρίως από ορυκτό καύσιμο. Άρα και αυτό είναι ένα θέμα το οποίο θα πρέπει να το δούμε. Και για να συνοψίσω το πρόβλημα που έχει να κάνει με το μεθάνιο, λοιπόν, υπάρχουν πολλές και είναι ένα πολυδιάστατο πρόβλημα και δεν είναι εύκολη η αντιμετώπιση αυτού του ζητήματος. Δηλαδή, θα πρέπει να αξιοποιήσουμε στο μέγιστο βαθμό αυτό που προσφέρει η τεχνολογία, που είναι συνεχώς υπό εξέλιξη και υπάρχουν όμως και άλλα μειονεκτήματα που απορρέουν από μεγάλη έκταση της κτηνοτροφίας. Είναι περίπου 1,2 δις τα μυριστικά που εντάσσονται στην κτηνοτροφία και αυτό έχει να κάνει με την αποψήλωση των δασών, π.χ. στο Αμαζόνιο. Όλο και περισσότερο γη χρησιμοποιείται για την παραγωγή ζωοτροφών και θα έλεγα ότι δεν είναι εύκολο αυτό να το κάνουμε, όπως καταλαβαίνετε, αλλά θα πρέπει ήδη να προετοιμάσουμε το έδαφος για μια πιο υγιεινή διατροφή και για τους ανθρώπους, αλλά επίσης και για το πλανήτη. Ευχαριστούμε, Γιούτα, που ήσουν μαζί μας. Αν μπορείς να παραμείνεις λίγο χρόνο μαζί μας και είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό αυτό που είπες, να βιστοποιήσουμε επίσης και τον αγροτικό τομέα και στην Ελλάδα. Having said that, I would like to show you a small video that will point out some good practices that will be also the opportunity later on to
Researchers estimate the livestock accounts for about 14% of global man-made greenhouse gas emissions. While greenhouse gas emissions from industry and transport are caused by burning of CO2 fossil fuels, agriculture, including livestock, emits most of greenhouse gases in the form of biogenic methane and nitrous oxide. But methane from ruminants is not the same as the greenhouse gases produced by coal and oil. When we burn coal, we add CO2 to the atmosphere, and this CO2 lasts for hundreds of years, and therefore adds to the stock of CO2 already present in the atmosphere. Methane is different. When an animal belches methane, it does not necessarily add to the net atmospheric stock of methane, because methane does not last in the atmosphere for very long. Within a decade, it is converted back into CO2 directly used by photosynthesis to grow new grass, and this process repeats again and again. Whereas with the industry and transport, 100% of emissions add new CO2 to the atmosphere that have been stored underground for millions of years. Conceptually, we can think of the atmospheric stock of CO2 as a bathtub filled with water. The bath is the atmosphere. The water is the CO2 in the atmosphere. The inflow from the tap is the CO2 emissions, and its drain is the limited natural capacity to remove the CO2 from the atmosphere. Before the Industrial Revolution, the inflow equaled the outflow, and the water level was stable, as was the atmospheric CO2 concentration. The Industrial Revolution tipped over the balance by increasing the inflow, therefore making the levels of atmospheric CO2 rise and rise, leading to the current warming of the Earth. In order to stabilize the CO2 in the atmosphere, we need to close the tap, which should require a fast transition to renewables and cutting down on energy consumption. As we already mentioned, methane from ruminants is a different story. Because methane is rapidly reconverted into the cycle as CO2 for plants, we can consider that the water outflow is equal to the inflow. What goes in goes straight out. This will continue to be the case as long as we do not add more ruminants in the years to come. Here we have an example of the evolution for methane emissions from sheep and goats in Europe since 1990. This shows an average reduction of about 3% emissions per year. A new metric from the University of Oxford linking the emissions to warming makes it evident that sheep and goats in Europe have caused no additional warming to the atmosphere. We can stabilize the warming effect of sheep and goats in Europe by having constant methane emissions from now on. Shrinking sheep methane by, for example, 1% annually until 2050 will deliver an even faster cooling effect. This effect contrasts with CO2 from fossil fuels, where similar reductions in emissions would still lead to large warming effects. But it is not all about carbon. The third most important player in this warming story is nitrous oxide. It has over a lifetime of 100 years, and 1 ton of nitrous oxide is considered equivalent to 265 tons of CO2. According to the last IPCC special report on climate change and land, livestock on managed pastures and rangelands accounts for more than half of total nitrous oxide emissions from agriculture. However, this and other previous nitrous oxide numbers from grazing and manure application may have been overestimated if they use the standard emissions factors from IPCC 2006 inventory guidelines. The most recent IPCC refinement to the inventory guidelines shows that actual nitrous oxide emissions factors from grazing and manure application are at most half of what was previously calculated. A final remark. Currently, many people advocate for getting rid of ruminant livestock as a way to tackle global warming. Grass-fed ruminant livestock currently lives on biodiverse grasslands, but emits large methane emissions, and the more fiber and grass they have in their diet, the more methane they produce, even if their production uses very few fossil fuels. But actually, grass-fed livestock are occupying the space and eating the grass that wild herbivores did in the past. They all occupy the same ecological niche and digest the cellulose from the grasslands. Were they removed, they would then be replaced by other wild herbivores that would produce similar methane emissions, as happened in the past. At the same time, new crops would have to be produced to feed livestock to compensate for the loss of grass-fed systems. This livestock on feedlots would produce less methane. However, they more than double their use of fossil fuels and their nitrous oxide emissions from high fertilizer inputs and livestock densities. And they do this at the expense of transforming land and losing biodiversity. The decrease of methane at the expense of increasing fossil fuel use would be of little effect in the short term and would make things even worse for future generations. Humanity, therefore, has to concentrate on curbing fossil fuel use and producing foods with a low fuel footprint.
Well, this is a kind of different video. It gives us another perspective about our discussion. So let's start with Mr. Giachristos, who's at the University of Thessaloniki, the Department of Mechanical Engineering. We have the honor to have him between us today. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Mrs. Spirakis. I'd like to thank you for the invitation. And I'd like to thank you as a citizens, you personally, and also the European Parliament, because this is a very important meeting. And they can make such meetings can make the difference. Mrs. Yuta said about some decisions that have to be taken in order to reduce methane emissions. I'd like to present you with an attractive approach, because the decisions won't be that difficult to be made. So what I'm talking about is what you said about before. Are we talking about win-win or lose-lose situations? Right now, we are talking about biomass energy, and this is something producing methane, as you said, Mrs. Spiraki. We can have another activity, the biomass energy utilization with in situ gasification, so that we can reduce methane emissions, but also methane is a good fuel, so we can utilize it for the production of electricity, and maybe we can even win money. So it's not a difficult decision. It's rather an easy decision that we can take. So let me give you some data without getting into many details. So just to show you what's going on, actually, we have a biomass hopper. We can have, for instance, peels. We can have marks, and this is how we produce gas, which is cleaned, and then it is put on a generator and in a motor where energy is produced, and then we have hot water, which can be used by industry itself. If we see the two axes, we have a reduction of management costs of biomass, and we have some other advantages. That's why we have a win-win situation. We win money, we earn money without being obliged to transfer all this biomass in a landfill. And at the same time, we take advantage of what I said to you earlier, the energetic content of biomass. So the question would be, is this profitable? Well, this is the second part of the win situation. I won't get into details, but I'd like to show you a pilot plant we've created for a winery producing 750,000 bottles per year. This is the consumption of electricity of the plant. And we have the production by bioproducts, by the mark, and we produce electricity and thermal energy. So this is a cost of 61,000 euros per year. This is the energy bill. So I can get into more details if you wish later, but within 10 years, we can have an advantage of 316,000 euros. And this is our incentive in order to reduce methane emissions. This is a video. You can see the plant, the production plant, the warehouses, the mercs coming from grapes and the production of wine. This is where we have the vineyard, sorry, and we don't have to carry our mark at long distances. So the approach, actually the approach is that we have, we're working with students and ex-students of our department. This is the Bio2 CHP. This is not a publicity for our spin-off company. We need, of course, help, but we are always willing to help farmers and agriculturists. And the main message here is that such initiatives taken by legislatures can lead us all to win-win situations. So good for the environment and good for our pockets as well. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christo. Definitely a concrete initiative that we need with fresh ideas with young people from the university. Thank you very much for your contribution. There will be probably a question later on. And now we will go to the School of Veterinary Medicine of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, Mr. Giorgio Arsenos, who has contributed with these materials. So you have the floor, Ms. Spiraki. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the video. It is very important. It is also important to realize what animal production means. And we shouldn't accuse animal production for things it's not responsible. So let me start with the current literature, the existing literature, and with existing research regarding climate change and animal breeding. So there were some false data. Now there is an updated report where people who have cooperated with us have participated. From Spain, for instance, the PC3 Institute, and they helped us to make the video you just watched. Well, livestock contributes to 15.5% to the greenhouse emissions. However, there are other sectors who do even more harm. So let's see how the climate change and how livestock is a matter for all of us. I mean, it's about farmers, thousands of farmers in the value chain, consumers, industry, animals, but also yourselves, that we will be the decision makers. That's why we're here today, in order to inform you in an objective way so that your decisions won't be destructive for a big sector of the economy all over Europe. Because it's not just all the agricultural sectors are responsible for the climate change. That's why we shouldn't have an horizontal approach. We should see each sector separately. We should focus where the problem is. We listen to some data about ruminants and about some methods that can reduce by 90% the methane production. Let's see how the climate change can influence animals, and animals are influenced by it. Let's see the genotypes of animals that can reduce, importantly, the emission of such gas. What should we do about the crops? And how can we face the big challenge? Because there is a 50% of the meat production, and this we'll see it in the next 25 years. There is no balance. There is not a balanced diet a diet that it is appropriate without using dairy or meat products. So as a scientific group, we need to comply with these global demands. At the same time, this is something you have to pay attention, you MEPs. We have to preserve biodiversity by preserving ecosystems so that the environment will be saved. So what we see, according to our experience, at a global level, we see that there will be an increase of the global production because the needs will be increased. So we will need more surfaces. So we need to have an intensification of the land, and we have to use some new ways and new methods. We need to have less animals with better productivity and better production. So we have to find ways how we can achieve these goals. We have the tools today, and because of the climate change, we have developed some provision tools with regard to the breeding systems and what will happen to the surfaces and to the biomass production. It is important for animal breeding because a very big part of the European economy is closely linked to the value chain of agro products. And we have to pay attention as well to the new members of the European Union. That's why we need to preserve their financial tissue as well. That's all I had to say. You've presented the video, and we're looking forward to comments or questions if you wish. Thank you.
Dear Professor, thank you very much, Yorgos. I will keep what I saw in the slide that in Greece, in the southern of Europe, we should keep in mind that there will be less rainwater, so we should adapt ourselves to our model and the model of animal foodstuff and the intensification of production, and also the consumer model we should take care. I will go to Thomas Kotsopoulos, Associate Professor of the Faculty of Agriculture Forestry of Thessaloniki. Hello. Congratulations for your initiative. A panel with very eminent members, very interesting intervention, and think that you have set the right framework. And I would like here to present this issue. I agree with George Asenos that we should not believe that only the farm stock are responsible. We enjoy meat, we enjoy milk and so on, but we should do it in more responsible way.
As you said, methane emissions come from enteric fermentation by animals, by waste, as well as the rice cultivation. So the animal waste, if it's not used, it can produce methane. There is an anaerobic procedure. The thing is that there is progress made also in Greece, and I see several honored colleagues, and you have created a very good round table in order to see what can we do in order to reduce methane emissions. 10 years ago, nothing went okay. I mean, we left everything outside, waste, and we produced methane. Nowadays, in our country as well, we have created biogas plants. This we've done because there is a practical value. There is a financial incentive along with the protection of the environment. But what is the future? As Jutta Paulus said, we need to create new markets. new markets does not mean that actually this should be the basis. They should be the basis for circular economy. And another factor responsible for the greenhouse emissions is actually the phosphorus emissions as well. So we need to do something about that. We should create biostimulants in our lands so that the plants will be able to capture other gases. Biogas should be used not just for electricity purposes. It's not a one-way solution. I mean, some remote areas in Spain, in Greece, in the mountains, I mean, we should find ways in order to produce electricity. Biogas should create a simple technology, and it would create the appropriate microclimate. So it is important. And there is a project where participate, Stargate it is called. And through this project, we've observed that with a simple system, by controlling the temperature during winter time, because every animal produces electricity. So this very animal needs less food within such a context. When the temperature is below 15 Celsius grades, it means that the animal needs more food. So we have emissions, and you very well said that 70% of the agricultural surfaces in Europe exists in order to produce animal feed. On the other hand, we have a reduction. When we reduce animal feed, we have also a reduction of methane emissions because of the enteric fermentation of ruminants. Another solution that could be easy is to have a simple plant in order to produce biomass. So these are simple things to do, and farmers should be at the center of the decisions. So in order to reduce live feed, or in order to reduce enteric fermentation, is to apply some technologies in order to reduce consumption, to reduce emissions, and to reduce methane emissions. So we can develop such systems. We can install cameras so that we can watch closely every day what's going on, and then we can import such models to other plants, and we can see, we can watch the animal every day, we can watch its weight. So cameras give us an idea in a real time. This way we can create a dynamic model, which is very important in order to compare every animal separately, to find out what feed it needs, and to help the animal to be fed in the correct way. We can adapt to our herd need. As you very well said, the most important thing is to say, for instance, in energy, I mean, we have to address specialized people. I mean, here we address all farmers. So whatever product we need, even with simple technology or other type of technologies. All technologies need to have at the center farmers. We need to think farmers within a multi-actor approach. So farmers should be able to adapt to the new situations. We address another field, and we need to create all these good practices. Now, some future solutions. These are solutions that there are some companies that create proteins by methane right now. Yes, we do produce. Can we consume it? Can we turn off the carbon cycle? There are some companies, Kalista in Finland, for instance, they do produce by natural gas some monocellular proteins, mononuclear, monocellular. So we need to do whatever it takes for the agricultural production so that we can turn off the carbon cycle. This is the most important. Thank you very much for your attention. And the most important thing is that we have to put the farmers at the center of the decision making. We have to be close to the farmers so we can help them more efficiently. Mr. Asernos is a very good friend of mine, by the way, and an excellent farmer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kotsopoulos. I'd like to thank very much the three professors for their contribution, because we are looking actually for good practices that can be implemented and transform for our farmers and offer our farmers new opportunities of producing. I think that you can have a major contribution, and thank you very much for your participation in this discussion. But we need also the infrastructure, and we have here Mr. Nikos Katsis, Asset Management Division, the Division Director from DESFA. And I know that the DESFA has decided to develop biogas and to see how we can provide the biogas in the network. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much for the invitation, Ms. Spirakis, and congratulations for this very good initiative. I think we, DESFA, on the part of the industry, would like with a few words to think and to express our strategy at the level of DESFA. We are now a private company with 3 owners, and all these companies are playing the field of producing biogas, of developing biogas. And we have also the responsibility on a daily basis to switch from the conventional natural gas in order, to enter the decarbonized area. But at the same time, we have to develop new technologies for renewable form of gas. And concerning now the biogas and the biomass, also related to the farming policy and related to the domestic waste, definitely biomethane can be flexible for all energy use. But what is very important is that biomethane is very similar to biogas, and we can use the existing infrastructure in a country, and that's the purpose of a mission as at the level of DESFA. We can transfer biomethane in our network because we fulfill the same criteria as biogas. And we can see, for instance, that the biomethane that can be produced according to surveys. We can produce 10.1 terawatt hours till 2050. That's the potential we can develop for biogas, and through the gasification of biomass, we can produce 10.8. So at the total, we can produce 23.91 terawatt hours that can be used in the farming, but also in the household, but also in the transport field. And today, the consumption that the data we have collected from our survey, so the today consumption is more or less for biomethane 1.3 million ton on a yearly basis, coming from agri waste and wood waste and humid biomass, sorry, and woody biomass. And our goal is to reach 5.7 million of tons on a yearly basis production for biomass, using all the possibilities, all the technologies from organic waste, industrial waste, domestic waste, wood waste, and we can then expect that we'll reach 5.7 million tons on a yearly basis. And today we are using only the 23% of this potential. So there is a large room of maneuver in order to improve this result. But the point is, how can you use the today infrastructure? You can see on the left part of this slide, the network of natural gas, as it has been established on the eastern part of the country. And now we extended these pipelines towards the western part of the country. And we are trying to evaluate the potentiality for biomethane. On the blue color, there are the regions where they have the potential for biomethane, and around the city of Thessaloniki and Larissa, because there are the possibilities to produce biomethane next to these two big cities. We have also infrastructure that consumes a lot of energy, and they use natural gas as energy. So it will be nice to develop this biomethane, and this will be our goal on this region. But in order to implement this goal, we are trying to establish a kind of roadmap in order to reach this goal, where by making a market survey, definitely we have to find the proper supply of waste. We have to collaborate with companies that are dealing with waste management, with municipal companies in order to have this waste. For instance, the area of Magnesia has all these capabilities. We can reach maybe 500 million organic waste at a yearly level, because, you know, with these units, this plant should be supplied with a quite high number of organic waste, and then to transfer this waste to the plants that will be next to the infrastructure. We have also looking for possibilities with the proper ministry in order to transfer these waste, and with close collaboration with the farming ministry, so that we can plan and set up such a plan. And our goal is to have a vertical unit that will produce biogas with 40% of CO2, and this CO2 will be transformed into biomethane. And with this biomethane, we will feed our infrastructure and or to turn it back to the network of natural gas. And I think this is this has also economic sense because of the huge increase of energy. And if we can really have a sound business plan, we can have a cost of biomethane and biomass at 17 or 80 euro for megawatt hours. Then this can be comparable to the price of the rise for natural gas. And I think that with a proper funding, we can start very soon this action of producing of biomethane biogas. As I mentioned in the beginning of my intervention, we have the three owners of the company, Fluxys, GRT Gas, and SNAM. They have they dispose a huge experience in producing biomethane. And we have this Terega Dutch company. So we have the opportunity to exchange point of views with these companies, and till we are aware that till 2019 there were many plants operating in Europe with biomethane. So we rely on these collaboration, and we also rely on the support of the European Union. There is also the secondary legislation that will help us to reach this goal, because beyond of the economic criteria concerning, I mean, to have a profitable company, but first and foremost goal is to protect our planet, to contribute also to the 55% reduction. And we will all collaborate in order to fulfill this goal for the common interest of all. Thank you very much for your contribution. I'd like just to thank you very much, because you are explaining how to use the existing infrastructure, and that's very significant, because so we can reduce the overall cost. And also to remind us that we have a big package with a Fit for 55, and this will also be a precision concerning the mixture between physical gas with renewable kind of gas. There are a lot of opportunities for investment, and this investment should be not only seen at large scale, but also medium and small scale. And each farmer can contribute, it can play in this field. That's why I would like to give the floor to Stefanos Georgiadis, chairman of the Chamber of Commerce of Drama, of the city of Drama, concerning because also is the present chairman of a very innovative companies. And Mr. Georgiadis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Spiraki. Congratulations for your efforts. With regard to the environment, which is of paramount importance for all of us. I think that this is the beginning of a very important discussion between partners, because it's not just the scientific data, we are also talking with the civil society, and this is also important. I listened to DESFA very carefully, and it is important that there is a planning. And, you know, in my area, we are very much interested in the production of methane, and I think that this is a precondition in order to go further and to progress. That's why in the future we will talk about investments in the area. DESFA develops its network in our area, and this is a very nice tool. Now, I'd say that in the framework of the European Green Deal, European Union's strategy is also focusing in the methane emissions, but also in circular economy. This is an investment opportunity for many companies. So the main directions in the energy area actually are heading towards a monitoring model about burning measurements. So we're talking about monitoring energy, and companies themselves can contribute to such a monitoring system. With regard to agriculture, well, it is clear that the European Commission supports the production of biogas. I agree with Mr. Arsenos and Mr. Kotsopoulos, because we should not penalize ruminants and their breeding. This would be a huge mistake. And there is an example in the area of plastic, for instance. I mean, there is a horizontal policy that is wrong, according to my view. As entrepreneurs, we think that it's not good to have horizontal approaches. We should make a distinction, and the European Union should reconsider several things. Now, about the purchase of biomass, well, there has been a theory, but now we should have the regulatory framework, and there we need to participate, all of us, not just the scientific community. There has to be a kind of consultation that will bring some results, because we'll have to take into account the cost of such policies. From fork to market, this is a policy that is influencing our choices, and all the people participating in such networks. With regard to waste, we do not talk about it a lot, but we're talking about recycling of organic elements. So 90% is thrown to the landfills. So we have restaurants industry, food industry. We have sources of methane production. According to our view, all such policies that need a policy intervention should take into account impact and cost. In Greece, there are several good perspectives about the development of biomass production plants. We have a big milk plant in our area. It has made great investments, and it will go on making investments, and it has to be combined with the natural gas network. So a production plant, a biogas production plant, helps also to the treatment of waste. You all know that this is the case. We have more than 40 plants in Greece that contribute to this effort. Biomethane can be used for the natural gas network. So the cooperation with DEDA and DESFA and the possibility to interconnect these two companies is very important. We can also develop another investment activity about the disposal of biogas, the procurement. There is a logistic issue. So there are further possibilities, new possibilities for our country, and we need to discuss about the financing of such initiatives in order to reduce methane emissions. We should take into account other parameters as well. I mean, we're talking about the liquid waste, what is left after the production of biomethane. This liquid rest is used for fertilizers. This is also a golden opportunity. This is a golden opportunity for agriculture and for parallel investments. Let me underline that farming and its modernization to a positive to a positive evolution, that it will help the protection of the environment. Well, it is something important, and within the new Common Agricultural Policy, we are able to do several things, positive things. With regard to biomethane, well, it is important to cooperate with VED and VESPA. At the same time, we have to find financing sources the best possible financial means, because we have several bigger or smaller units that will need some help in order to be able to invest and to leave a positive environmental footprint. Mrs. Spiraki, I don't have anything else to add, but there are some entrepreneurship opportunities that have to be taken into account. And there is the Lab 40 that works with several startups, and we're working on several innovations, also about agroalimentation. So we are trying our best, because our area is a very good one, since it can invest on biogas and it can also leave a positive environmental footprint with regard to what happened in the past. Thank you for your attention, and congratulations to all of the speakers and participants of today's meeting. So there will be a discussion within the European Union about all this. Thank you, Mr. Georgiadis. You've
So, I mean, you described this issue of the elephant in the room to find, I mean, the funding. I think that, you know, we at the level of the decision makers will do our best to ensure that there is the proper funding that will be the possibility also to have measurement and incentives for the farming policy. The issue is how quickly we will make this happen, funding for the small companies, so that all these very promising proposals that we are discussing, that one day this will happen concretely. So I would like to give the floor to Mr. Christos Zafiris, Manager for Biogas Project of the Biogas Department Center for Renewable Sources and Energy Saving Center. You have a lot of data to give us, so you have the floor. Thank you very much, Ms. Spirakis, for the invitation. And it's not necessary to mention the importance of your contribution in order to reduce the emission of methane. And this discussion should have taken place yesterday. And if we want to reduce emission in the farming policy, we have, as the science just mentioned, and also the other speakers mentioned, I would like to mention the chain of emission of and how we will manage to produce biomethane. First, we have the force source, the feedstock, in order to produce biomethane, and then we have the application of biomethane, and we have such as power generation, heat generation, cooking gas, lighting, the water heating, injection into natural gas grid, and so on. But in order to have biomethane, we have to understand that we need first to have biogas and then to upgrade it in order to produce biomethane. What is also important is, in order to have the biogas through the gasification, we have to make the proper transformation of the so-called raw materials. And then we will go to the most important part. I mean, it's pointless to say about legislation, about price, and so on, if we do not have resolved the issue of the raw materials in order to produce this biomethane. And in order to produce biomethane and then biogas and then biomethane, we have all these sources: the agricultural waste, the energy crops, the animal manure, and also on the industrial food processing residue from the these agri-food industries. These are the four main points concerning the primary sector, and without the contribution of the primary contribution, we cannot produce biogas and biomethane. And for the future, in Greece, we have also to take care of the recycle of waste and also the biodegradable waste, solid waste, because we are talking about farming. Have we understood the importance of their contribution? And for instance, I would like the biogas produced by 4 cows producing milk. They can cover, for instance, the electric needs from for one house, and 5 cows can fund the consumption of 1 car that will cover 20,000 kilometers per year. And if we have 1 hectare with the enderic fermentation, we can probably fulfill the electric needs of 8 houses.
Also, if Mrs. Spirakis take 0.1 of the cultivated land of Thessaloniki or of Larissa, or 0.3 of cultivated land of the Evros area, I'm not talking about 1, 2, 3. I'm talking about 0.1, 2, 3. So there is a way to create 1 megawatt biogas plant, and if we do our best, we can have 21,000 tons that can produce 8,100 megawatt, and it can offer us green houses. So about the digested waste, well, this is very useful also, and it has several financial advantages. I mean, 1 ton of fertilizer is lots of money, but we can save 8 million euros as farmers, and such a fertilizer is much more effective than the current fertilizers sold in the market because it can be easily absorbed by plants. So this is data of August 2021. I don't know if you know that in Greece we have more than 280,000 SMEs in the primary sector, 280,000 producing waste. I won't get into details, but this is some data about some companies. We're talking about 107,000 exploitations that have several thousands of animals, and their manure is around 30 million. If this 30 million manure existing in Greece, according to the existing animals, if we use the anaerobic digestion, then we can have 1,200 megawatt. This can be used in order to produce energy and thermal energy. So we can see that just out from animals, we can produce biomethane and biogas. So this is some research that provided us with such data. We've started in 1989, and I can say that 30% can be received by the raw material. So our main objective with regard to the reduction of methane emissions in Greece, as you said, so we need to look and to use local energy, alternative energy resources, renewable energy resources. We have to find alternative fuels in order to produce energy, and the advantages are very important from an environmental, social, and economic point of view. And there are areas in Greece with a huge potential. What I want to say is that it's high time we dealt with waste, and we need to realize that they have a value and a price. Greece does not do enough with regard to the use of biomass. There is no supply chain, and there is no a market for biomass as a raw material. We need to do that, and we need to tackle this problem. Another thing of paramount importance is the following: we won't be able to build any plants if we don't find about the territorial possibilities. You can't discuss about prices and regulations regarding biomethane if you haven't first found the point of construction. What you see here, these dots, the blue, red, and yellow dots are farmers. It's John, George, etc. They do have sheep, they have cows, pigs. So we need to know who these people are. We need to know about their waste. The waste is not the same everywhere. I mean, we are talking about different kind of waste in quantity and quality, and their mixture gives us a different result. So we have to be aware of all this. We need to know who will provide us with the raw material, because 2/3 of functional operational cost is transport cost. So what is the most difficult is the collection and the transportation of raw materials, not the construction itself. This should be understood. What is difficult in Greece is the transportation and the collection. And we need to find all the primary elements for the primary sector. I told you that we have 280,000 SMEs. We'll have to be able to know what they're doing, all these people. In 2021, we have 78 biogas plants. 55 are biogas plants and 23 biomass gas. Central Macedonia has 16 such plants and 5 biomass plants. In order to compare a little bit with the European Union, we don't have yet the data for 2021. We have almost 19,000 plants of biomass. Here you can see the total production, 64 terawatt of electric energy. A house needs 3,000 terawatt per year. So you can see that there is huge potential. We're talking about green electric energy by biomass. 2020, we had 725 plants of biogas upgrade, and 20 terawatts out of 26 were used for the natural gas. And this is a slide about the biomethane plants in the European Union from 2008 to 2019. And you see the percentage of raw materials used for the production of biomethane. All these data are very important for us because we can see what they used to use. They use corn, for instance, in Germany in order to produce biomethane. But in the last 2 years, in 2018 and 2019, you see that these 725 have used other raw materials. They used the 6 boxes I told you at the beginning. It's the raw materials used by RED 2. And the green one is the most important. This is manure. This is hay. This is biological cleaning, used especially in Sweden because the cost is low. This is industrial waste. And the light blue is by the biodegradable waste. These are the provisions of the European Union for 2050. In 2050, things will be different. We will have a plan according to which up to 2050, we will have 29,000 terawatt of green gas, out of which 40%, 1,170 terawatt will be produced by biomethane. Biomethane, 2/3, 780 terawatt will be the result of digestion. The other will be gasification. So there are calculations done by the European Union. Biomethane will be used for the use of hot water and for other house purposes, home purposes. The rest will become a fuel for lorries and trucks and maritime transfers. So the total cost saving will be around 217 billion. And I do believe that ourselves, in the next years, we will have 1 cubic of biomethane. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Zafiris, and thank you very much for the very interesting data you've presented us with. But you also talked about something which is a common problem with regard to the implementation of the European legislation. Mr. Georgiadis talked about plastic. Well, the main issue faced in Greece with regard to the disposable plastic is that we do not have enough plastic for recycling, so that such an activity would become a profitable one. The same goes for the collection of waste by farms, by agricultural activity, and this is something we should tackle if we want to progress with some profitable activities, and if we wanted to adapt to the European legislation. So we have to protect the environment, we have to give the opportunity to small and medium enterprises to get profit. So now we'll listen to some other colleagues who, Mr. Themistoklis Fetses, who's a chemical engine technical manager, and he's the director of QLab. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me here in this panel. I'd like to further my presentation. I have some example to present to you, and I think each example corresponds to a technological application for the production of biogas, generally speaking, bioenergy. As was mentioned by the previous speakers, the importance of biogas and the raw materials like energy crops, plants, byproducts, and so many other sources of waste that has biogas can be used for this process of in order to transform this methane. Then you have the separation of dioxide and methane in order to create a clean methane that then can be supplied to the sector of energy and to other sectors for consumption, ready for consumption. For me, what is important is to produce at local level biogas or bioenergy is what we call, delocalization, and so that we can have on various geographical spots a plant that will produce energy ready for consumption, even if we do not have the network of an official supply. That's very important because through our country, but also in Europe, there are some places that are not very close to some official network. So that's very important element to bear in mind. Here the circular economy with the digestive that we mentioned by the former speakers, and the way this anaerobic digestion, to be more precise, it's the way, to manage all these waste and to implement the principle of circular economy. From these first raw materials, after this anaerobic digestion, we can separate the liquid waste and the solid waste. and with a proper, we can transform it in a way to create new sources of liquid fertilizer for the crops, and to reduce in this way the footprint on the environment from these various crops. And we can also make a transformation of the solid waste. And if we try with the new technologies to make the proper transformation after the anaerobic digestion, we will make the production of biogas more green, and so it will be much more friendly to the environment, and we will have a lower energy footprint for the livestock industry. Here you have example of the various technologies.
Treating digestion, splitting it into liquid or solid. It can be used for several technologies, for composting, bio-drying. Same goes for the liquid fraction. As Mr. Zafiri said, although there are several biogas plants in Europe, the tendency is still increasing. We had a plus 4% in a few years ago, and with biomethane, the increase is even bigger. In Germany right now is the first country with regard to biomethane. I'll give you some examples because we have elaborated some projects. This is pure high. It has to do with the development of transformer of biomass. We can produce hydrogen that will be used later on for other energy needs, supply chain, in transport, or other technologies that require hydrogen in order to transform more carbon dioxide to methane. So we'd say that hydrogen is a very important gas in order to better use and to use more carbon dioxide for the production of methane. Another project which is under development from a commercial point of view as well is the culture of microalgae. And there are around 2 kilos of carbon dioxide committed to the production of biomass, 1 kilo of biomass. This can be used as animal feed in general. It's rich in proteins and rich in omega-3 elements. It can be used also in cosmetology, in the production of chemicals, as well as in food supplements. These are some applications. Some of the applications under development right now in Europe. We have ingredients for the production of bread, food supplements, and also pharmaceuticals. This is an example that it was mentioned before by Mr. Arsenos. We're talking about intensifying cultures for the production of plant biomass by hectare. this compared to another cultivation is 100 times more. Another project under development is the Bioretreat. It's about biochar production. This is the material that is split, and we have a solid fraction and a liquid fraction, and we use the liquid fraction for the production of biochar, which can be used in our lands. And this will improve the comparison between nitrogen and carbon, and it will be also useful for the anaerobic digestion. We can use it again in order to complete a carbon circle. I won't get into details. There is another project, Photosun. We are looking to several projects. This is the treatment of liquid fraction. We can have an integrated separation system. This is a press, as you can see, and these are all the technical components of the machine. This is a patent of the research center of Demokritos in Athens. We're trying to implement such a technology because it is very useful. We separate fractions between them, liquid and solid, and we can use the result. And we can use it in order to produce several byproducts, several nutrients such as nitrogen that can be used as a fertilizer. And then there will be a kind of water which will be suitable for irrigation. So we're solving several environmental issues. And all the projects I'm mentioning right now are taking advantage of the afterwards. As Mr. Zafiri said, if we use all these materials in the correct way, we will become greener and more profitable. Another project, I know this is a brainstorm, but these are projects that are very useful and very innovative and very ambitious, of course, and they should support the bioenergy sector in the next years. ZeoCat is a European project, and it wants to process the gas produced by a plant. And when the gases are separated and we have 100% of biomethane, this can then produce liquid energy carriers. And this can be used from an energy point of view. And this can be a benzolium fraction, very useful in order to do synthetic applications or other energy application. It is one of the main ingredients of the benzene. Well, these are technical details. This is the last slide of this project. What I want to underline is that with such technologies, gas to liquids or others, we can have a bioenergy production, liquid or solid, in several areas, even when they do not belong to the network. Of course, this is not the main reason we're trying to use such technologies. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm here if there are questions or remarks. Thank you, Mr. Svetsas. Actually, we don't have any time left. So I'll give the floor to Mr. Mitsopoulos, but before that, let me say that all the projects presented are projects that can be developed at a local level. They can give the possibility to local farmers to take advantage of the waste of their activities. This is very significant, and we will preserve your presentations and data in case some farmers want to get into touch with you. Mr. Mitsopoulos is the technical consultant of Biogas Lagada Ergo Planning, and he will give us his view. Sorry, but we have just a few minutes left. Good afternoon, Mrs. Spirakis. I'm very glad to be with you today. I'll be brief. Actually, I will just give you an example of the implementation of such a procedure that you've described. And I'll testify a few thoughts about the future. So I represent two biomass plants. One is the Lagadas plant. It is an effort by 4 big farm companies. It created in 2016, and it is using several tons of organic waste per year, and it produces 67,000 tons of digested waste that is used in the land. Second example, this is the mesophilic anaerobic digestion. This is in Nigrita. 2 groups have created it, and there is a cooperation in the Ceres area with more than 500 producers that bring to us waste, and we use them in order to have digested. What we use as waste is mostly manure of cows, chicken, pigs. We have peel and fruit pulps for several companies, fruits and vegetables that have some features that cannot, and they cannot be consumed, are also a raw material for us. We have marker, we have waste from guinea plants or from olive mills. And we're trying to reduce as much as possible the use of corn or starches, because I mean silages in general. So in both plants, there is an energy production. Biogas produced is taken to a sea plant, and we have a production of 999 kilowatt per hour, and 1,000 kilowatt of thermal energy. we use it for several purposes. For the cleaning of the plant, for our fleet. Now, digested waste without treatment, there is a liquid form that is used in land. This is a direct integration in the land, so that there won't be any nitrogen loss during its disposal. Because if we just left it on the field, we would create more emissions, nitrogen emissions. So we put the digested waste directly inside the soil. This way we prevent nitrogen emissions. Then there is the possibility of a solid fraction. This is something that greenhouses prefer, or some plants cultivating fruits and vegetables in a solid form. It is like the compost, and it is distributed in several ways. The truth is that the quantities we use are less than those producers want to give us. There is a huge offer of waste from all the industry, and we cannot utilize it. Right now, in Lagadas, we use waste of a few farmers of the area. There is a bigger quantity of waste. That's why we've tried to expand, and we have already plans, expansion plans of the plants. The VN network cannot accept such an expansion of the plant. That's why we've started some other methods. For instance, the upgrade of biogas to biomethane, so that we can put it forward to the network. We will probably choose the technology of membranes. Well, we can see that we can produce up to 316 cubic biomethane per hour. The other solution, possible solution, is the liquidation of biomethane, because especially in maritime transports in ships, they want to use fuels environmentally friendly. There is a technology. There are some commercial products, and we're thinking about it. We're under discussion right now, but in any case, the solution of the energy production, electrical energy production, has come to an end, more or less. That's why we will do something different in order to expand. Plants such as ours do contribute to the reduction of the carbon emissions. It is also described by the regulations of the European Union. Emissions are very little. And what is also very important is that such plants using such waste do contribute to all strategies with regard to circular economy or the new CAP, and they're taking into account all the environmental measures. So obstacles we face right now is that there is no framework with regard to the commercial utilization of biomethane or bio-LMG. However, the gentleman from VESFA said that we do have some solutions right now. However, there are some technical obstacles, some legal obstacles. Right now, we can't take out biomethane from the plant and put it to the pipeline. And there are also several changes, legislative changes in farming, in growth, development. And this prevents us from further develop. As a biogas plant, we would like to expand. We would like to better utilize the existing waste, and thus facilitating the European Union policy with regard to circular economy, to the limitation of the gas emissions, and also with regard to the implementation of a better agricultural policy. That's what I had to say. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Mitsopoulos. Mr. Mitsopoulos, the framework comes from the European Union, and the changes that will take place within the framework of the 55 and will take into account renewable energy sources and also a strategy about methane. As I told you, we will vote in the plenary according to my report and with the contribution of my colleagues in the second plenary of October. But there are several practical obstacles in order to better utilize waste and to better collect them. And allow me to say that these are topics that should be emphasized within the national policies. But the direction is clear, and I think that such discussions do contribute in this effort. I wish that we had more time. We don't. I would like to thank the Greek biomass company who has watched the meeting on the internet, and I'd like to thank all the farmers who were connected and followed the exchange of views. I'd like to ask the participants to leave their details in our office so that we can give them to farmers. And let me renew our meeting after the legislative package and its voting in order to see what will be the influence for Greek producers and SMEs. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you because you have contributed importantly in the final result of the report that will be voted in October. With all your knowledge, with all your help to me, and because you have transferred the valuable knowledge.